Oh, hello, everybody. Simon Taylor here from Urban Utilities, just providing an update on the Cannery Creek project. We had a session with the community planning team very recently, but I'm well aware that a number of people couldn't make the event. And so what we thought we'd do is make a short video recording of the slides and the commentary that we went through on the evening so that those that couldn't make it have an opportunity to catch up, and those that were there have got a little bit of a record of some of the things that we said and the conversations that we had with the people. Now, on the particular call today will be obviously myself, take you through some of the initial slides, and also will be Sean, who was with us when we did our community sessions back in 2019. Gosh, it feels like so long ago. And also I'll be introducing Paul Phillips, also from Urban Utilities, who is now going to be taking over the next stage of our project as we move away from the design piece that we've been doing over the last wee while into some real engineering that is going to be looking at things that are going to be happening on the ground. So if I can have the agenda, that'll just step you through what we're going to see. We're going to have a little bit of a reminder of why we're here, look back at what we did in 2019 and some of the things that have happened since then, what's being proposed for the project, a bit of a spoiler, it's all going well. Some of the elements of consultation that we did on the night, because we managed to get the community team who were with us on the evening to do some work for us. And then a little bit about what happens next and what you'll be seeing as in the field and what operations you'll see happening within the next few months. So a little bit of a recap of why we're here. So our objective, the aim of this particular project, is to remove those uncontrolled wet weather overflows that are coming from the sewer in the Cannery Creek area that has an impact on the local community. We know, and you've certainly filmed for us, some of the occasions where the sewer's got too full, it's popped out and it's either discharged into the creek or it's actually discharged onto the road and into gardens. And we want to stop that. We want to manage that risk that's associated with those sewer overflows getting into those waterways. We want to protect the people who are using those waterways. And we absolutely want to deliver better outcomes. You know, we talked on the days when we did the design about things like the litter being in the creek. We want to sort out some of the issues that are there to do with the way the nutrients interact with the environment, because it's not good to have those going out into the bay. And we want to be able to deliver that at the lowest possible cost in terms of what might end up in terms of cost for the community, which really translates into cost for the bills. So the aims that we had set out for ourselves back in 2019 when we started on this and we had those conversations with you are absolutely the same aims, and those are the aims that we're trying to resolve through this project. So that's really good and consistent. So thinking back from 2019 to where we are now, well, 2020 was one of those strange years, wasn't it? We all seemed to be spending time in lockdown, but that didn't mean to say that we didn't actually do any work. We've done a huge amount of work inside that time. We've carried out a lot of field investigations, and some of you will remember that we had surveyors out there, and I remember there was a debate about flags being on trees and posts in the ground, which was all part of the work. We've done a lot more calculations and modeling to work out how we're going to achieve the goals that we want in terms of sediments, but also to make sure that we don't make flooding worse. That was an absolute criteria. That was something that we couldn't achieve the project if we were going to have a problem with flooding. We've now resolved that. We think that we will certainly not be making flooding any worse. We've completed our feasibility study. Now, that's an internal phrase to say that we've managed to complete the studies, all the works, all the engineering works that we needed to do to make a business case to the Urban Utilities Board to get them to agree that the solution that you designed with us back in February, well, no, sorry, not February, sorry, back in September 2019 would be the one that we take forward. And they agreed. The board liked what they saw, and they were pleased with the work that had been done. And so they've given us the green light to move to that next stage. And that's what Paul will be talking about in a little while. We've continued our engagement with various people within the area, whether that be Councillor Allen, Brisbane City Council, all the people that we need to make sure understand what we want to do and to help us with the stage which is really important for us, which is the approvals. You may remember that we said that, like any planning permission, as we want to go forward, we have to achieve certain outcomes and have to reassure people that we're going to be doing the right thing. And those approvals are well and truly underway. And of course, we need to have a look at the land that we're going to need to use within the catchment area to be able to achieve the outcomes, you know, the wetlands and so on. And those are things that are well underway as well. And Paul will touch on some of those as we go through there. So, what's being proposed? So I'm going to hand this next piece over to Paul. Sorry, a little bit of hesitancy in terms of those slides there. But I'm going to hand over to Paul now, who's taking over the running of the project. So it's going from that conceptual design stage into the real engineering piece. So there you go, Paul. Sorry, a bit of a false start. Off you go.
Thank you very much, Simon, for the introduction. There's a new face to the project for the community planning team. My name's Paul Phillips, and I'm a program manager here at Urban Utilities, and I'm taking the project now from where kind of the good work that Simon and the team have done up to the feasibility stage and got the board approval, and taking that to further develop the design and engineering and take the project through to delivery. So it's a bit of a recap. Or the image you can see on the slide is the catchment area for the Virginia branch sewer. So the blue area is the area which forms the catchment for the main gravity sewer, which is the thick green line. This is where Cannery Creek is situated. On this section highlighted in yellow is the section of the current sewer that's being considered for the upgrade. So the options that were considered, the first option was the traditional infrastructure solution, which looked at pretty much duplicating what's in the ground currently, and taking the flows to our Eagle Farm pump station and then out through our luggage point sewage treatment plant and discharging into Moreton Bay. And the second option was the effects-based solution. This is the solution which you guys voted for as a preferred option during the previous workshops, and it's the option which is being approved by the board to take forward into the next stage of the project. Hand you over to Sean. Sean, if you remember from back in the workshop, Sean's the subject matter expert who kind of led us through the concept design stage. So Sean's going to touch on how that's developed since them workshops were taking place. So Sean, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Simon. Hi, everybody. So you might recall at the end of the workshops, we developed a strategy for Cannery Creek, which involved a number of pieces of infrastructure, water quality treatment systems integrated through the creek itself, and then also another location off-site next to the Southern Crossway. And all of that infrastructure was designed specifically to treat stormwater. There's been some subsequent modelling done by QUU to look at, the performance requirements for each of these treatment systems, and we've had to upsize the focus area 4, or the off-site location, which you can see on the slide here. The work that we've done since the workshops includes, as Simon mentioned, a detailed survey of all of these areas. We've completed ecological mapping and assessment of the waterway area and also the off-site location to understand where important vegetation sits, what needs to be preserved and what can be removed. And importantly, we've undertaken a detailed flood assessment. So we've set up a specific flood model for the waterway and calibrated that to previous flood events and also previous council flood modelling. And then we've tested some of the infrastructure solutions that we've designed with you in that flood model to ensure that there was no impacts or no increase in flood levels. Really importantly, we took some of those ideas, or all of those ideas that we agreed to in the community session, and put them into a 3D model, which models the surface area of those, the bunds and so forth, as part of that flood modelling exercise. The good thing about that exercise is it did prove that functionally all these systems are going to work. So water comes in and water leaves the systems, all the bunds work, all the pathways work, and etc. And we have no impact on flooding. So you might recall, maybe if you go to the next slide for me, Paul, that'd be good. You might recall that we had a series of sediment basins and wetlands all the way down through the system. That hasn't changed. The locations of those haven't changed at all. So we've got two large sediment basins, a freshwater one at the top end and a tidal one in the middle reaches, and then two wetlands off to the side of the creek. So the top image there is near Progress Park, and that sort of muddy area that gets very wet during rainfall and really cuts off the parkland, and there's a mozzie breeding area. It's going to be converted to a freshwater wetland, which is the image on the right, and up at the top end near Station Avenue, that's a photo from the bridge looking upstream. That's going to be converted from the mangrove line channel to the freshwater sediment basin on the right hand side. So they're just examples of that infrastructure. I think you've seen these images already. So Paul, next slide. So in terms of all of that hit list, that priority list that we developed with you, the ones that are highlighted with the green dots are in the strategy. So I'll just quickly talk through those. Reprofiling the muddy areas along the waterway. They're in managing the mozzie zone. So getting that those areas that don't drain well on the floodplain, or that flat area next to the creek, all of those are going to be reprofiled and drain into the creek. So those muddy areas will disappear. A full network of pathways and accesses around the creek will be developed on both sides of the creek where that access is possible. So there'll be loops and so forth for walking. Increased habitat diversity. Obviously, we're creating some freshwater habitats within the floodplain that aren't there currently for that purpose. There's going to be some parkland embellishments, particularly around Progress Park, extra pathways and so forth through there. The broader pathway connection, extra seating, and a couple of new crossings at specific locations. At the top end where the existing bridge is, it's already been rebuilt by council. We're not proposing necessarily to change that, but there needs to be a weir built around that area. So there may be an opportunity to beautify the bridge as part of that process, either the access onto the bridge or out of the bridge that needs to be reviewed. And obviously signage and artwork and so forth was identified as well. And there's a few items in there that are more related to council delivery rather than QUU. Back to you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Sean. So there's a number of regulatory approvals and environmental assessments which we need to work through. So there's some key approvals at the federal, state, and local level, and these need some detailed environmental assessments to be undertaken. So some of the images there are examples of what you could expect to see on site over the coming months, receiving water quality and dispersion modeling and sampling, monitoring for odor, noise. We will be doing some further geotech and contaminated land and soil and sampling also. Again, working through the cultural heritage assessment and the, some aquatic ecology reporting also. So it leads on to where the project's going to go next. As I mentioned in the previous slide, there's a number of approvals and assessments to be undertaken, but there's a little bit more to it. So we've got the design. So we've got a good concept design now. We need to validate that design with further engineering work, and which is going to be supported by the geotechnical assessments. The photo you can see on the top left-hand side is of a drilling rig, and so that's an example of what you could see with taking them ground samples. So they would be taken along the creek corridor and in the off-site wetland location. We also need to progress the approvals. So there's a number of approvals. The approvals pathway is quite complex on this project, but the approvals need to be informed by the engineering. So doing the site survey, which is the bottom photo, the geotech, the previous analysis, which I showed on the previous slide, all that will form part of what we need to pull together for engaging with the organisations. And I should mention to date, we've had real good engagement with the Department of the Environment and Science, and they're real supporters of the project, so it's quite positive. But also, Simon touched on land tenure and acquisition of land for the project in his earlier slides. This is extremely complex for this project, given the geographical span and the different current land uses and proposed land uses for the project. We need to navigate through that, and again, that's informed by having the good engineering and the good background assessments to be able to make informed decisions and secure the access and ownership requirements. This pretty much brings the slides to a close of kind of where the project's come from. The progress has been made since the last catch up, and what the next steps are, and what you could expect to see on site. Now, in terms of re-engagement with the community planning team, we are committing to do that within the next 6 months. So sort of we're aiming for by the end of October to get everyone back together with further updates on how the project's progressing. So I want to thank you all for your commitment and engagement in this project to date. It's definitely been noted, and as I say, I'm grateful of that. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks very much, Sean. Just closing now. Look forward to seeing you perhaps by the end of October, and thanks for your input. I have to say it's been really, really valuable, and it's been essential to be able to demonstrate to the board how valuable your input's been as a community planning team, and we want to continue with that. Thanks very much indeed, everybody.